is not with us this evening. Good evening. We just finished executive session and we are now going to enter back into the public portion. We don't anticipate going back into executive session this evening. And may I ask for a motion to return to public session, please?
Motion. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Wall,
Here.
Mrs. Briamonte. Mrs. Zhang,
Here.
Dr. Kalor,
Here.
Mr. Sillo is absent. Mr. Buckley,
Here.
Mr. Damari,
Here.
Mr. Mann.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I'm going to read an opening statement and then we'll pledge allegiance to our flag. Opening statement: meetings of the board are open to the public and all members of the community should feel free to participate. There's one opportunity for the public to speak. Any individual desiring to speak, please give your name, address, and group, if any, that you're representing. The presentation should be as brief as possible. There are certain matters that may be brought before the board and cannot immediately be addressed in public. Such matters may be referred by the president to a board committee or the superintendent for consideration or resolution. That said, we'll try to answer any questions that you may have this evening. The board vests in its president or other presiding officer authority to terminate any remarks if needed of any individual if it's in the best interest of those present to do so. With that said, can we please stand to pledge allegiance to our great flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda would be old business. Am I correct in the agenda?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Old business. First item is advanced placement exam reimbursement. Superintendent, Dr. Cascone.
Right. So I'll just a very brief introduction for Dr. Irwin, who will take it. So this, the conversation, just sort of looking at the district's practice for the reimbursement of AP exams began in the previous calendar year in the curriculum instruction subcommittees, was brought forth to the board, received some feedback from the board, and Dr. Irwin subsequently went back and did some additional research and is here to speak tonight on some administrative recommendations that came out of that research and administrative conversations. Dr. Irwin?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I prepared a memo which explains the current practices and outlines recommendations for new practices. So just to recap with everyone what has currently gone on since the past 2 years. So in July 2021, the district started paying for AP exams and also changed the grading weights so that an A, like a college prep course, remains a 4.0. Taking honors and AP were weighted the same at 5.0, and then taking the test was a 5.5. Over the past 2 years, we've paid more than $150,000 in exams. And likely if we can keep promoting enrollment in courses, that those figures will go up. In order to inform this ranking, we wanted to see how does taking the test count towards our rankings, which is really the impetus for the work. So what we did was we looked at how are the rankings, what part of the rankings derives AP participation. So pretty much 40% of the rankings is based upon AP participation. And when I say AP participation, College Board, it's verified through your participation in the test. So it's not just taking the course, it's taking the test. So 30% of that is how many of the percentage of your students that take AP. And whereas passing, which is a 3 or higher, even though some colleges might be a 4 or 5, but whereas passing is a 3, is weighted 3 times heavier than just taking the course. And then the other 10% is multiples, like that's called your college curriculum breadth index and is worth 10% of rankings. And the maximum number would be 4. So for instance, we have a student, we just received our AP Scholar reports. We have a student that took and passed 14 exams. That's wonderful, but in terms of metrics, anything over 4, it's good for the kid. It doesn't really boost up our rankings. So therefore, part of the conversation was, so you would consider that student, we paid $1,400 for that student roughly, a little less than that because it's about $97 each. So how can we take our funds if we want to extend the practice to not only kids that take AP, but we want to entice post-secondary opportunities to other students, such as dual enrollment participation, perhaps AP testing days, participation in the Rutgers program, which is also credit bearing. How can you place measure on one metric over the other? So what we're recommending moving forward is that we pay for the cost of up to 4 exams or the equivalent. So because we know that 4 exams is where we draw the line in the metrics counting towards improving your rankings, we want to still continue to reserve funds to, support not only school rankings, but really just to support kids and their opportunities after they leave here in Homedale. And we want to make sure that that money is reserved for other students as well, not necessarily students that take AP. So we're proposing that throughout a student's high school career, we would pay the cost of the equivalent of 4 exams or the equivalent. So most of the time, dual enrollment courses are about $300 to $400, where, you would sit in a course, the teacher is granted to be like an adjunct of the course because they have a master's degree and their syllabus is determined at the college level. And then that student, usually if they get a B or higher, they would get college credit. Which is different from AP. It's just a dual enrollment program. So in order to be able to use funds for programs such as that, we are proposing limiting AP exam payment to 4 throughout a high school career so that we can have the money to use for other post-secondary opportunities for kids.
Thank you very much. Open it up
I
to the
do
board
want
for
to just
questions.
bring up one point that's not in the memo, but expanding AP isn't about the maximum amount of tests. It's about your student enrollment. What percentage of your kids by the time they graduate have taken AP? So we just got back our AP scores for this year, which I'll be presenting at a student achievement either next month or in September. In 2022, we had 57% of our students went towards that CRI index, which is the 30%. This current year, 2023, we're at 54%. So it actually declined 3%. So even though we have more kids taking AP, this metric starts counting in 10th grade. And a lot of our increased numbers are because we have 9th graders taking AP as part of world history.
So two items. One, I want to open it up to the board for any questions that board members may have. And also to what extent you may not be, are you seeking any input or consensus from the board on specific policy changes moving forward? So maybe do it in reverse order. Is there any particular, Superintendent, perhaps I could ask you
Yeah,
that
I'll
question.
take that.
And then to
Sure.
open up to the board for any questions you have on this related topic, this topic or related. Thank you.
It's a great question. Thank you, Mr. Wall. So there's nothing about this that necessarily necessitates a board vote, right? It's not something that would be reflected in a board policy. Arguably could be in a board regulation, but board regulations are not approved by board motion. That being said, and I think it became apparent to us at our last meeting when there was the whispers of changes to the high school's grading scale. We hadn't even really spoken about that publicly, and it was certainly not a fait accompli yet. We already had folks reaching out to it. We understand that these are matters that are important to our parent community and to our students, and obviously thus to the board. So the reason for bringing it forward is to ensure that the board has a clear understanding of the administration's recommended direction, so that in the event there is perhaps forthcoming disagreement of opinion within the community, the board isn't like, well, I didn't know that was happening, or I didn't understand why it was happening. That's really the purpose of bringing this information forward to the board and the public, so that you have that understanding, have an opportunity to ask questions.
in terms of budgeting, if the students who aren't taking the APs take advantage of utilizing the up to $388, do we have an idea of where our budget would be on this overall? If all of our students that aren't taking the APs and then the student, if we just maxed out?
Yeah, so pretty much right now, you could have a year where 80% of the kids take exams and they take multiples, and we can't predict that because we can't predict necessarily how many AP courses they're going to take, but we can predict the flat rate. So if you say 400, there's about 250 kids in the graduating class, correct? If you could say we can earmark $400 times 250, that would always, we'd always end up at the same cost year to year.
I do appreciate all this data, and you did this presentation in a private meeting just for us to better understand this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Fleur, Board Member Briamonte, anything?
A couple of things, my thoughts on this. This has been tried for 2 years.
Since, yes, since the 21-22
Correct.
school year.
So I think anything that we try should be given a little more time. That's number one. You start something based on some premise, and we need a little more time. That's what I would say to any new idea that we're implementing. That's number one. Second, encouraging AP exams was very good for ranking, and that was one motive, a very clear and honorable motive. But it was also to encourage students to pursue academic excellence. So we want to encourage, just as we want to encourage students to participate in sports and do very well, and clubs and do well. And there's a lot of money spent in many areas for the overall well-being of the child. This is one area of where it matters to the child. So that's why we're spending the money, not just for rankings. So I appreciate you doing the work actually to understand the rankings, because prior to this, we did not understand it very well. And saying that 4, is what is the number that matters for ranking. But we don't have to stick to 4, which is clear for ranking. We can stick to any number that we agree upon, based on the overall academic excellence. So maybe 14 was too much, and 4 is what we need for ranking. So we can go with a number in between. And if you said 9th grade didn't matter as much, maybe you can have 2 a year or 3 a year, and last one, you can have a higher number. We don't have to stick to 4 only because it matters to ranking. As we keep saying, it's not ranking alone that we care about, it's overall health of the children. So the other thing is the point of allowing them to take these exams was so in order to encourage participation. But if students are participating in AP classes but not taking exams, are we really encouraging students to just sit in who are not very motivated? And if they're not very motivated, are they diluting the experience of the class for people who are truly interested in learning, and not just for ranking, in learning at an AP level? The whole point is that they want to learn at an advanced level, right? Ranking, exam or part. So an exam may be an indication of their motivation. If that's not there, then what else do we have? Maybe grading, So why then, if students are not interested in taking the exam, why bother? They can take an honors class. So I'm just not clear about it as to what criteria we have to have them enroll into an AP class. That I'll ask you that. Secondly, I think dual enrollment is, and the others that you're suggesting are great ideas. But we don't have to take it from this. It's not like we have one pot and we have to take money from AP in order to do that, as though this is just a small pot catered to academics alone. So we take money from here to give that. They're all great ideas. So we have many great ideas that we toy with as a board in sports and in arts and several areas. And as soon as we introduce a certain sport, we don't have to take money away from another sport. So we don't have to pit one against another. It doesn't have to be dual enrollment versus this. And there's a certain amount. Now we have to share the same pot, since we're able to find money for other things when a new club is introduced and new sports. So I feel that maybe there's a way we can creatively have this and something else that we like. It seems to me that is when we have 2 other good ideas like the dual enrollment Rutgers, we taking money from here as though we have no other resources. So these are the concerns I have.
I can address the first part about the enticement to take the course. So that's actually ties into the next thing, my next item for old business, which is the grading
Before we
practices.
move, you're right, that is a good segue to the next item, but I just want to hit more on sort of that, that high level piece. I think it's important, and I appreciate the thoughts, Dr. Klur. I think it's important to realize that the practice of paying for exams I've never experienced it before. That's not to say that it's not a good thing. I'm just suggesting that I don't think I've never worked or been familiar with a district that's paid for tests. I think when we talk about this idea of are we investing and thus valuing equally academics with arts and with athletics, I think it's important to recognize that this board, to its credit, this community, to its credit, invests a tremendous amount of money into its academics. Whether we're talking about a $40 million referendum and with it state-of-the-art facilities, which I would argue have been a big part of not only expanding our academic program at the high school, but also starting to retain more students here, to the tremendous variety and array of courses, advanced coursework that our schools offer, both on the middle school level, which has, again, really an elective offerings really second to none. And then you could make the same argument for our high school. So I think it's important, and just so the public understands that, I know there's this idea of we're stealing from Peter to pay Paul, but part of the reason why we sort of have to do that is because we're already investing a tremendous amount of money in the annual budget into academics. So I think that's worth just sort of stating on the record publicly.
So,
Anyone else? Board,
yes, I have a couple of questions.
board member Zhang, go ahead.
Yes. So you said, okay, last 2 years since July 2021, the participation rate increased to how much the participation rate from 2022 and 2023?
So actually we could say participation increased in the fact that all the kids who are enrolled in AP take the test. However, the metric that College Board uses, which is that 30%.
I'm not saying the top College Board. I'm asking the questions on 2022. How many participation from our school since this you don't agree is a policy since this implement in our school district, and how many participate rate before we implement this means? Did you compare that?
Yes, so we have 349 students that participated in AP. That's up from 319 last year. Like I said, a lot of that
Not
is
last year. I mean, not
From the
the
year prior to the implementation.
prior this. Yes.
one moment, please.
Yeah, since we changed before, this 2 years, we didn't reimburse anything for students. What is the participate rate? Then after we reimburse the fees, then what the participation?
So our participation, our enrollment, when I say participation, how it's defined universally is your percentage of kids that take AP actually declined this year. Last year, we were about 57%, and this
I'm
year.
not talking about this year. I'm talking about the first year we implement this. Now this is
I think what
second.
thank you, Ms. I think what the question being asked is using the year prior to the implementation of the complementary testing policy as the baseline. What was the difference between that year, the first year it was implemented, and let's just start with there. The baseline being the year prior to the practice, and then the year of the first year, the inaugural year of the practice. Is that what you're asking, Ms. Zhang?
Yes, exactly. Then we
Okay.
can see whether this is policy or you do not agree with policy, whether this one works.
You need your mic on. I'm sorry, but what year did it start?
2021,
Okay,
21, 22.
so we're in the middle of COVID, so it's all skewed anyway. I
Mhm.
mean, to be candid about it, I just want to say this: Humboldt never paid for tests. There were rankings questions about how do you get these rankings up. One of the elements is, if I recall it, I think board member Raimondo was here. She may have a different opinion, but that the people that take the classes weren't taking the tests or at a certain level. So it was to what extent will they take them more? Well, let's pay for them. So it was. I don't want to say it was just thrown out there, but it wasn't something that was this elegantly contemplated rubric, right? It was, well, let's pay for them. Let's see if we get better penetration, better participation.
I-
I'm just saying what I recall, and then you could feel free to jump in. And so there's no long history of paying for tests. So now I'm hearing that last year actually went down. So to what extent is paying for tests having no bearing on the participation rate? So go ahead, you may have a different.
No, that's
recollection.
not get the conclusion. The conclusion you have to compare for you pay for the tax, compare you didn't pay the test. You're not comparing, oh, we pay both of them for the test. That's you compare, right? So you compare, you start paying, then compare before you never pay. That's how you pay the differences between you pay or not pay.
Okay, so I have the numbers. If right now I'm talking not about AP student enrollment, I'm talking just about test taking and percentage of test takers, meaning if you're taking the course, you take the test. So in 2021, it was 74 in 2020, it was 81%. In 2021, 75%. In 2022, it was 98%. And this year, 100% of kids enrolled in AP took the test rather.
So the policy with in your document, that's okay. They sent the parent in July 2021, which means that when the kids take the exams, it's already on May 2021. So that year, the participation rate is how many? 2021.
74.6%. That's
Yes, because this rate is very low, because then July 2021, you sent out the letter to say, okay, they're going to reimburse for the AP test. Then the participation rate, what is that one on 2022?
I don't understand.
What the participation rate?
I mean,
is?
the question is a simple one.
You said it's
I'm
93.
not saying I have it. The
We
question
did
is a simple
encourage
one.
the student
Well,
from, let's say, from 91, from 70% to 90%. That's worked.
Okay, so thank you. So
The
thank you.
conclusion you got it from your statement is doesn't work. But
Thank you,
from-
Board Member
that's
Zhang. So what I'd
how
like
we
Dr.
compare-
Cascone to,
How we
like Dr.
compare to the data, right? We're
I'd like-
compare data. We compare data the year we pay and compare to the year before that we didn't pay.
fair enough. So if you could sum up the answer to that question, and if Dr. Cascone, if you can close the loop on this, point, so we can
Sure.
also move
So
on with the agenda. Thank
I'll
you.
just
I
give
have
the,
another question after this one.
okay.
If I allow. So you said, okay, there's kids, they take 16 AP exams, that's good for the kids, but not good at school. So
Okay.
you think, I mean, as a director of the curriculum, so you think the kids who take 16 AP exams is good for the kids, not good for the school?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
And when Dr. Irwin said in the statement, for some students, they take 16 AP exams. And she said, okay, it is good for the kids if this kid took 16 AP exams, but it's not good at school. So I just want to ask you, as a curricular director of Homedale School District, so the kids who take 16 AP exams is good for the kids, not good for the school. So that's your point of view.
Okay, I would like to respond with metrics and data. There are two different things you're asking for, two different data sets that are composed of two different variables. The first variable you're asking for is the percentage of students that are enrolled in AP, how many of the kids that take the AP take the test. That is 81% 2020, 74.6 2021, 98% 2022, and then 100% this year. That metric does not inflate, that metric is just course participation. It doesn't have anything to do with rankings. The metric that does have to do with rankings, I can read
I'm
those.
not asking for ranking now. My question is, I didn't ask for ranking. I just asked participation rate.
Well, those numbers are 54% 2021, 57% 2022, 54% 2023.
I think the question before that, and I'm happy to field it in the hope of moving the conversation forward. The question is, for the student for whom we paid 14 exams, and surely, I mean, that's having those those tests paid for, surely would that student have taken 14 exams, whether they were paid for or not? Who knows, right? Did the fact that they were free encourage the students to take more? Maybe. And ultimately, was the fact that that student took 14 exams a good thing for that student? Absolutely. And as an educator, do we consider that a good thing? Yes. If we look at that question on a very granular micro level, the answers to those questions is yes. But I would argue for this board, there are other questions to consider when we think about limited resources, okay, and we think about providing opportunities for all students. Is that, and yes, I will use the word, though oftentimes it's considered a negative one, is that equitable? Is that an equitable use of funds to not cap the number of tests for which the board will pay? It doesn't mean we're not encouraging students to take AP. We doesn't think that it's not a great thing that they do so. The question is should there be a cap on the number of tests that the board and the district pays for? And we've brought forth a premise, which I think still honors the fact that we are encouraging students to take AP. It continues to be a nice financial courtesy on the part of the board and the district to compensate students and parents for up to 4, which again is quite unprecedented as compared to other districts. It is simply just, and also with a critical eye on, and I think Dr. Irwin astutely noted this, is if it is our goal, and it is, that we get our AP participation rate far higher than it is, right? And that we are also encouraging students to take tests. There is really, it's very difficult to predict. This could, if we accomplish our objectives, and as reflected in the upcoming strategic plan, excuse me one sec, please. It's okay. We're talking about anywhere between $400,000 to $500,000 a year, potentially annually, in AP compensation, right? If we're doing what we want to accomplish here, which is that really all of our students are taking at least one AP, or at least those who are attending a 4-year college or plan to attend your 4-year college or 2-year college are taking an AP class. That's essentially 96% of our student body. If 96% of our student body take an AP and 96% of them take one test, we're paying, or taking multiple tests and we're paying for those, that is an unsustainable budget. So there's also, and yes, a financial rationale to this plan, which is it enables us to be able to budget for it annually while also ensuring that we're ensuring equitable opportunities for all our students. So that's just some thoughts on that.
Did you have something? Board member?
Yeah, I do. So first of all, thanks for the information. And I want to say it's your first point of conversation about someone taking 14 APs is truly amazing. Kudos to that student. The other thing was that Dr. Kokoda had sent out a list today with all of our students who scored a 5, which was an extraordinarily high number of students and very impressive. And we had quite a large collection of kids who got 5s on multiple exams in 1 year. I mean, kudos to those kids. That's extraordinary. That takes a lot of time on the side to be studying for those exams. So I'm totally thrilled that we're able to afford that opportunity to those students. And I do think that maybe if it came at a cost to the student, they might otherwise not take it because that cost does add up. And, you know, for a school who continues to pride themselves on incredible academic excellence, I think it's tremendous to be able to pay for this test for these kids. And again, we are continually celebrating how well these kids do. And if paying for it is part of that celebration, then I'm apt to do it. I think it's tremendous that we're putting this money towards academic excellence that helps those kids down the road, that prepares them for college, that maybe allows them to save some money at college because they AP'd out of exams. So I love everything I heard the last 2 days, including the 14 APs and the incredible list of students that got 5s, and kudos to the kids. And, you know, we are here in Homedale constantly priding ourselves on excellence. And I think this is one of the ways in which we do it. So I'm really psyched. And, you know, one of the things that Terrence had mentioned that was that, you know, this was just something that was thrown on the table. It was not. Just for some background history, it was not thrown on the table. Dr. Cherney had researched this fairly extensively and talked about it and felt like this would be a really good push for our students. And it would really encourage kids to take the exams and not have a potential wall preventing them from taking the exam because of the cost. So it was something that was actually talked about pretty extensively during his time. And, it wasn't something that was just thrown out there on a whim. So I'm really psyched about all the excellence these kids are accomplishing. It's truly amazing. I know on the back of this form that you had sent, it said AP students are required to take AP exams in May. Students who do not take the exam will not receive AP credit or wait on their transcript. And you were saying that this was happening in other districts. I mean, is that what we're planning on doing here? Like not giving them the credit if they can't afford to take the exam?
So that kind of segues into grading. Can I move?
Yeah, let's move. Thank you for your input. Food for thought. Thank you very much, board member. And following what her comment was.
I still have.
No, I'm
question.
sorry, Linda. I'm sorry. We need to move along with the agenda. We'll have a portion to get further into it, but we have to move through the agenda. Let's go to item number 2. That segue is appropriate now. Go. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to start I'll start backwards then with the high school. So
All right, just a point of order. Mr. Green, the board members will absolutely be able to continue to dialogue. We're trying to move along with the agenda. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Follow on with board member Viamonte, unless you want to,
Well,
take
Linda
Linda's.
still wanted to talk about. the
Linda, go
topic.
ahead with your question.
All right, okay. Regarding the equity, so I don't know what's the equity here meaning, but my understanding of the equity is reach each student potential. What's the goal of the school district is for every student, each student reach their potentials, not by limited some students, and to say this way can help other students. So that's just my understanding.
Linda, we didn't quite understand the question. Can you just repeat that, please?
Now the question is my statement because we're talking about we limit students to take exams because about the equity. So my understanding about the equity is
Oh, equity.
Equity.
Okay, equity.
equity. My understanding about the equity is the school district is to teach student, reach each student, every student potential, not because, okay, I have the limited some student that help other students.
Yeah, so listen, at the end of the day, and this is why the conversation is being brought forth for a conversation with the board. If ultimately the majority of the board is comfortable with the $150,000 expenditure being dedicated only to AP exams and not with an opportunity for parents to utilize that allotment for their children for things such as dual enrollment, then the administration won't move forward with the perspective with that plan. So if the board wants to continue only using the $150,000 for AP exams and more specifically with no cap on the exams, then that's what the administration will do. So I put the conversation back to the board to gather that feedback and to understand what the board's consensus is. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
I'm
think-
done with my question. We can move on.
I think that was part of what Dr. Kalura was saying, that we still offer those other opportunities to the other students as well. We're not saying we can only pay for one thing and not these other avenues of continued education. So I think that's what Dr. Kalura was mentioning earlier.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. In other resources, we don't say we are starting this and therefore we have to, we can't afford it, so we'll stop it. We do what is needed for a student to achieve their fullest potential, whether they be special ed or middle or advanced at every level. So we don't take away from one
Understood.
program. That's good. That's
Okay, so then the implication of that is, and that's something that is budgetary, right? So is that moving forward, we would need to consider budgeting up to twice initially, up to as much as twice that amount, and potentially 3 to 4 times that amount moving forward, which ultimately could reach up between $500,000 and $750,000. So, and again, you're right. It is a steal from Peter to pay Paul dynamic now in public school finance. We learned that through the budget this year. So that will be at a cost to something else. And maybe it is a good time to begin those conversations because, that's really the dynamic of public school finance now. So that really is the question. If we want to continue to expand those opportunities, again, I will tell you though, folks, that this premise of above and beyond offering these programs where then do we draw the line, right? What else do we pay for, right? Because there are other things within our school system that are discretionary spending on the part of parents that we could certainly argue contribute to the holistic experience, the achievement of the child. We don't pay for those. So can become a slippery slope when the district, above and beyond its expenditure and investment in the things that happen here every day, staffing, facilities, what have you, materials, to now begin to pay for these discretionary expenses. So perhaps it's a good opportunity to have a more high-level discussion about that.
Anyone else?
Is there a certain amount of tests that you would cap it? Because if the trend picks up where many students are starting to take 14 exams, financially, that's not sustainable.
Right. I think we could discuss a certain number, not have it as 4 just because of the ranking system, and also reevaluate it next year or a year later. It's just been 2 years, and 100% participation is great as well.
Do you feel the participation go down? We're not pulling the funds for them to not take the 4 tests, or if we increase that number by a little bit, but I feel like the encouragement will still be there where we'll get a high participation rate.
I
And
thought
by right now,
100% was test taking.
how much we spend 150K, right, for the past 2 years. So we're not talking about 400K. We're not talking about 300K. Let's see next year how much.
It can be if many students start taking 14, it will.
Yeah, we will see. That's why next year we will see how, if we have students so excellent, they take 16, get all 5s, we should be proud of them instead of I worry about you take a 16 class, you're doing great, you take advantage of this program. Like we have other, like that, we have other way and to reevaluate like Dr. Cascon said, we reevaluate where the budget should be. I always think about the student, keep the student in mind, right? So we don't have to change right now. Let's take a look another year to see what that look like.
Anything else, Linda?
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's just go right to
We'll
item
just
2.
take that feedback.
Yeah,
We appreciate it.
back.
We'll take it back and be prepared to bring another revised recommendation
Okay.
to the board.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
go ahead. All good? All good, Paul? Good, great. So let's go to item 2. Thanks.
So I was going to start with the high school, but I changed my mind. I'm going to start with the lower end to give it some breathing room. Yeah, let me do that. So there was a lot of discussion. So I want to just start off. The next thing that I'm talking about is grading. Most of the recommendations that are put forth in this packet and pretty much are summarized on the cover sheet, I put a memo. They're really about teacher practice as opposed to changes in scales and whatnot. It's our goal, Dr. Cascone, as he discussed last month, is part of the plan or in his board goals. Goal number 2 was really about consistency and norms and routines for the academic experience. Part of that, and it came up time and time again in our surveys that we did with PLC associates from all of our stakeholder groups, was about grading, assessment, and feedback. So our parents say that's an area that we need to target. We knew it was an area that we needed to target even before that happened because it was part of our board goals. And how we evaluate our courses and how we evaluate our kids should be normed to the best extent possible, so that whether you're in one person's class or another person's class, if you produce the same amount of work, if you produce the same quality of work, it's graded fairly. So most of the recommendations are really about those teacher practice pieces. So I wanted to just give a high level overview. I mean, the document is 12 pages because ultimately this would go out to our teachers because most of it is teachers centric, but I could present a quick overview of just what those changes are. So for grading, at Village School, I'm going to go school by school. At Village School, we would continue to implement a standards-based report card. Right now, we have it's somewhat of a standards-based report card, but it's more of like a checklist. What we would propose is we keep the standards-based report card in K-3, which is what we do, and make it better, and truly New Jersey's coming out with new standards in August 24. So it's work we would have to do anyway. but we would develop those accompanying rubrics so it's not so subjective. So for instance, a student understands story elements. What does that mean to excel? What does that mean to be proficient? What does that mean to approach? So it would be just more flushed out rubrics. With Village School, feedback that we got from the Village School PSA, from the teachers, from the families, is really, and if you think about little kids, they take a little bit longer of time to acclimate, and October comes around very quickly where you have to start getting ready for your report cards, right? So currently it is 4 times a year report cards are distributed at Village. Because there's a lot of diagnostic testing that goes on with the younger students, that means less time for like the meat and potatoes to really assess where they are. So our recommendation for Village School is to move to trimesters, which really wouldn't change practice. It would just mean report cards are distributed 3 times a year, which would give the teachers really more just time to assess where the kid is truly at, rather than, inform right away in October. We would still acknowledge a midpoint. So like halfway through the cycle, we are encouraging, well, not encouraging, if students have, teachers have students that are in more need of support and they need to reach out, that they would be instructed to make contact with those families rather than ending at the end of the marking period. So really in Village School, it's just moving about from 4 quarters to 3 for trimesters. And really just because the kids need a little bit more time to get acclimated and there's a lot of assessments.
And it's a fairly common practice in
Yes.
elementary schools.
Most elementary schools that do standards-based do trimesters because the report card is more laborious. You have to really like sit student by student, and it takes at least like an hour each kid, because it's not like the calculator is just giving you the mean. It's, you have to line it against a rubric and everything else. So that's the change for Village. Okay, move on. Grades pretty much 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Nothing is really changing in terms of what's public facing. Internally facing though, we want to avoid situations such as student A is in this teacher's class and he receives a 90, and that 90 is a result of taking 12 assignments that marking period. Student B is in this teacher's class and he receives a 90, but that 90 is the result of taking 3 tests the marking period. So the practice that we want to put forward is just standardizing the minimum number of assignments each marking period and standardizing our categories. So for instance, mostly we have 2 categories. It is major assessments, which is your unit tests, your projects, your essays, minor assessments, which is classwork, homework, participation, those types of things. So what we're doing is standardizing our category weights so that it doesn't mean more in one class than it means in the other. And then also standardizing the minimum number of assignments that you would have to have in each category. That's really just for equity and parity of student experience. The grading scale has not been touched at any level. So I know I got some emails today about like an A+. We are not changing grading scales because we recognize, and I think the last board meeting I was really reflective too about what changes like that would mean to our community and parents and students themselves. So we want to get an opportunity to really survey our kids, our families, before any changes like that were to occur. However, I just want to point out the grading scales at Indian Hill and SATS is a different grading scale than the high school. So at SATS and Indian Hill, there is an A+. At the high school, there is not. We're leaving it exactly how it is. I just want to point out that there is an A+, but it's at those 2 schools and it always has been. And we're leaving the most you can get at the high schools an A, and that's what always has been as well.
For now.
For now, until we survey families and see where we land. Okay. Then at Homedale High School, the recommendations kind of continue forth. We want to also do the same thing that we're doing with SATS and Indian Hill. If you have 2 categories, major and minor, you should have a certain number of assessments in each category so that you can't you don't want to take 1 test and you bomb the course and you have no chance to recover because that teacher may have only given 1 test. Whereas someone else, if you fail 1 test, but they gave like 8 tests, it doesn't hit you so hard. So we're just standardizing the same thing, the categories and the number of assignments. The other recommendation, which brings me back to like the segue in, is about AP. Currently, our practice, this began in July 2021. Well, I'll speak with what happened prior to 2021 for context. So prior to 2021, there were two categories. So we have a weighted GPA. Before I get into any of that, I just want to say GPA is really a local decision, and it doesn't, you could have a 12.0, you could have a 4.7. Colleges use an unweighted GPA. They measure it how they're going to measure it anyway. So our GPA number doesn't matter as much to them as what grade you got in the course. So with that said, prior to 2021, there was a 4.0 for like college prep and a 5.0 for honors and AP, whereas honors and AP were lumped together. So an honors course carried the same weight as an AP course. In 2021, the practice is still the same. There's a 4.0 for your college prep courses, a 5.0 for honors and AP, and then a 5.5 if you take the test. That says that, you know, we're putting the weight, the emphasis is on taking the test rather than taking the course. So the recommendation moving forward would be that we differentiate simply the honors level versus the AP level. So you have a 4.0 for college prep. When I say 4.0, I just mean an A would be a 4.0 in college prep. That would be a 4.5 in honors, and that would be a 5.0 in AP. I did check with Dr. Kokoda in the back and wanted to make sure I truly understood. This was also too, this is the recommendations that came out of the committee work. Everything I'm speaking of tonight is multiple stakeholders. So with that said, we would have the 3 tiers, 4, 4, 5, 5. If we change our grading, the GPA is only calculated once, and that's at the end of the year. It's not like if you changed it from a 5.5 this year to a 5.0 next year, what does that mean for the kid? Like, where do they land? Because the GPA is recalculated once each school year, it's really about the metrics we set ourselves. So we're only compared ourselves to ourselves. Whereas students wouldn't lose out is what I'm trying to say. So in doing this, what we wanted to do is we looked at every comprehensive high school that was ranked above us. There are 41 comprehensive high schools ranked above Homedale. I mean, just the traditional public schools. And I wanted to see in part of the AP conversation and part of the grading conversation, like what do their practices look like? And that's what our committees did. They researched everything and what our committees did. What most schools are doing is they differentiate honors and AP. However, AP credit, one way to keep kids taking the test without having to pay for it, rather than a monetary enticement, how do you keep them to take the course and take the test? You could say we give a 5.0 for AP. However, if you choose not to sit for the exam, then the course would appear as an honors level on your transcript. So you'd still have the advanced placement course, but you're not being weighted at a 5.0. You'd be weighted at the honors, which is a 4.5. We felt that this revision really does 2 things. It differentiates the rigor of honors and AP, and it puts our emphasis on AP participation rather AP test taking. And AP participation is really about getting the college experience, and that's what we want to value. That's the feedback that we received. Am I missing anything, Dr. Kokoda? Okay.
I just want to make sure that that the last piece you said what you meant to say, and just to clarify my own understanding. If we're differentiating the weighting based upon whether the student sat for the test or not, then isn't it not fair to say then that we are emphasizing the test taking by virtue
Correct.
of that?
So
Okay.
yeah, so that's how most schools, like for instance, Glen Rock, which is the #1 public comprehensive high school, like a traditional K-12 school, like in their program of studies, it says if you don't take the AP exam, if you don't taking a test, the syllabus for AP courses is built around preparation for the test. So to not take the test is like going to college all semester and then not taking the final exam. So we want kids to take the exam because the syllabus is all about preparing them to do so, because
Right.
that's truly the demonstration of what you know. So therefore, we entice kids to take AP by saying, yes, you get the 5.0 credit for being in the AP course, but to hold on to that credit, you got to take the test.
Right. Should they choose not to, not only will they still have the more heavily weighted, the higher weighting, but they also will have had the experience of sitting in the class.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. And I also want to point out, we talked about equity, so I want to bring it up. I would be wary of paying for tests if there's a cap, because you can get into a very ethical decision making. And I don't think this is the case for most families in Homedale, but we can't assume. Let's say that we even with when you pay like that, so like let's say one student only takes the 4 tests that we pay for, and one student, they have the means to pay for the other courses, right? You don't want a GPA race that's based upon who had money to pay for something. You want a GPA race based on who earned that credential, right? So that was all part of this decision-making here.
So again, just to make sure I'm clarifying, and that you're explaining it the way you want to. So, but we've suggested a cap,
Mhm.
right? And we're also suggesting that a higher a higher weighting if you take the test. So is it safe to say that capping and the difference in weight depending upon taking the exam are mutually exclusive? That they should not exist at the same time? Right? So it's either cap with no differentiation in weighting, or no cap and differentiation in weighting.
Right, which is why most school districts don't pay for AP.
Right.
So at one point, if you don't pay for AP at all, then the kids who can afford to pay for AP get and say 2 kids are both equally good, and one can afford to pay, one can't afford to pay. The kid that can afford to pay for it is getting a higher GPA because they can afford it. So that's actually,
Mhm.
against what we should believe in. So, so I'm just pointing that out. So there's a clear thing, the kid that can afford it is getting 0.5 more because he or she could take.
And that's
Even-
why, you're correct, Dr.
Right.
Cooler, you're correct. And that's why I think semantics are just really important here. We're not saying we're paying for 4 exams, we're paying for the equivalent of. So how you choose to use the funds is up to the student, because you don't want to get into that battle.
But I think, in my opinion, if you're not going to pay for it, hypothetically, I'm not for not paying, but if one is not paying for it, there should be no difference in grading then. Because then you're distinguishing between, a kid who can afford it and one who can't afford it. So I'm just putting that out there.
Two quick follow-ons from Dr. Clore. How much is a test?
$97.
$97. Okay, just so that folks in home don't know the number we're talking about. And if you take the test and you fail it, are you still getting reimbursed for that?
Yes.
Okay,
And
so
we're also paying right now. So how does a kid take 14 tests? You might ask. That's impossible because you only have 6 courses a year, right? So how would 14 even be a possibility? We pay for self-studying currently. So for instance, I have that kid that took 14, kudos. And I don't want to take away any value from that. That's amazing. I'm like, who are you? I want to be you. However, like that student took AP German, right? We don't offer AP German, but we still paid for their AP German tests because we pay for students who self-study as well in our current practice.
okay, and so just the last thing I wanted to mention, and I just want to have the information out there. So however the board administration judges the final, decision, which won't be tonight. An alternate way is reimbursing. Well, first of all, I'm not quite clear if you reimburse when you fail. So that's just a different story. Maybe that should be discussed. Or also splitting all the tests. So there's a shared responsibility all the way through. Or maybe it's 100% to X and then the shared responsibility all the way through. So the roughly $100 becomes $50. $50 becomes $25. It doesn't take long to make it a cup of coffee in Starbucks, right? So as you go along, so maybe it's a shared responsibility, something like that. So I just want to open it up to the board, because we're going to do our best to move through the agenda as well, but I want to make sure all the board members are heard, including Ms. Zhang online. Do you have any inputs or questions here? Before-
Mr. Wall, I just wanted to say one
Sure.
thing with that. So your thought about carrying it through, because we want to give all kids opportunities, whether they're AP kids or not, right? I think it's just about, you get $400, how you use that money is how you use that money. you can use that money for our Rutgers. For instance, right now, we have Rutgers courses that are $60 a pop. You get Rutgers credit for that. By not paying for that versus paying for that, do we say Rutgers isn't as good as university as these other courses? So I think it's just about, here's your 400, how you use that money is up to you, pretty much.
But there's two parts of it.
I have a question regarding this. How about like each year, not only school academic, not just AP exam, we put a sports, special education, anything together to say every student you have 4,000 this year. How want you spend it together? Up to you.
Can you repeat that?
I said like for the equity, we're talking back again like the idea say, okay, you totally have $400 for each student, and how you want to use that up to you. I said it's not only for AP, we should be equal together how much money we give to one student. Like, okay, are you in the extracurricular sports? I mean, some sports very selective. Not every kid can get in there, or some other like a special, education, whatever. How about we pay like and this number is big, $4,000 for each student. How do you want to spend it? Not up to you.
Yeah, so no, I mean, it's a fair question. This would be exclusively for post-secondary opportunities. So whether it was AP testing, dual enrollment credit, would be what we're talking about. So that's a good question, but that it would not be for, a slush fund for paying for a lacrosse helmet or something of that nature.
No, I think she's asking a hypothetical question that we could say we'll give $1,000 to every student, but you want to spend on football, lacrosse, or this or that. So why? She's just posing that
so
question.
the
yeah.
answer to that is no. It would not be dedicated to anything other than post-secondary opportunities.
And just in terms of budget, if you say we have, like, I'm just using this number as loosely, roughly 250 kids in a graduating class times 400, we can always predict our costs at $100,000 a year.
So why are we why are we restricting this? It's a good idea, 400 per kid for post-secondary, but why are we picking post-secondary to do such a slab system? Why not other areas?
What other
are there
areas?
rules, sports and all the other extracurricular, all
that's
the
a
other
whole-
things apart from what the school is involved in many areas? So, are there rules against doing, I'm just out of curiosity, the kid comes to school, teachers teach them, and they do all these other extra things. So all others are extra for holistic experience of the kids. So should we not then do the same for other experiences too? Why are we picking this?
What are some examples of, because the kids.
Sports,
but they're not-
arts, drama, all the clubs. They're all extra.
they're
They're all
not
nice
paying-
things to
But
have.
they're not paying for those.
But the school is paying.
Yeah.
But the school is paying the
This is
athletics
a debate
director.
about paying or not paying for the tests.
No, I think maybe I didn't, I think I'm not communicating well. You get what I'm saying?
Is why aren't we paying for football? Right? Is that what you're saying? Like, why I have to pay out of pocket for my kids to play football and cheer? Why aren't we giving them funds to do so?
Everything that the child does, apart from the teachers and payroll, which is fixed cost, we're paying schedule, whether it be through Schedule B, athletic directors, club day, everything is getting paid for ultimately. So, but those areas we just assuming that is included. I don't know if there's a policy. I'm not sure. I'm new to the board. Why are we only picking this area
Are students
post-secondary?
taking money out of their pocket to pay for sports? Anything sports related?
No, residents are paying through their taxes for sports.
Got it.
And the same residents are paying through their taxes for AP exam or for everything. For everything, the residents are paying ultimately, right? So through their taxes. So the funds are being allocated. So if we say for this portion, we'll give a certain amount, we could expand it and say for their entire breadth of extracurricular stuff, this is their amount, and they can choose to put it wherever they want. If somebody is playing 5 sports, is there going to be a limit there? 10 sports, an art kid may be playing 10 sports like that, 14 AP exams. It's just
Sure, that's.
Well, we pay out of pocket for sports.
we pay the Schedule B, or the athletic directors, we pay them. I'm not sure what you mean by out of pocket.
Well, I have to pay for football. I have to pay for cheerleading. I have to pay for basketball. Yeah.
School sports are
Oh,
paid
you're
by the
referring to that. I
coaches,
see, I
the
see, I
coaches,
see.
assistant coaches, all these people are paid for it.
So just closing out item,
I just
sorry, go ahead. And
I'm
then let's
open
get
to
back
that
to this item.
conversation,
and
but
close
that's a
out the
whole
item.
other conversation.
That's
Just
right.
getting back to the AP test. Let's be clear too. There seems to be two different, it's either being all inclusive by allowing the students who don't take AP tests to have some money to do something post-secondary, or possibly capping the amount of AP tests. That's kind of the two part here. So you mentioned 6 classes, right? So there's 6 classes they can take. Maybe we consider capping it at 6 instead of 4, so that all the classes that they are in, if somebody happens to be in 6, then at least all their classes are paid for. Maybe that's a thought.
Sorry about that. That would just be, just to clarify, that would be 6 per year as opposed to 4 throughout high school. So you're looking at different numbers. Yeah.
Let's, yeah, well, listen, this is we've gotten some great feedback. We absolutely will be, Dr. Irwin and I will follow up tomorrow, sort of unpack what we heard tonight. Then have some and again, look, at the end of the day, these are administrative decisions, right? Although the fiscal piece does connect back to the board, but it's a partnership. We're a team, right? So when we move forward administrative recommendations, ideally we like to have harmony within the board in terms of what we're recommending. That's important to the administration. So we will absolutely bring it back, bang it around a bit more, and see if we can't bring back something that the board holistically feels positively about. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Irwin.
I have
The
a
board-
simple question, not related to the complicated one, simple one. So if the kids who are taking AP courses without a test and they're getting a 5.0 or 4.5, that we're talking. Now, if they don't take a test, then do they have like a pass fail? Are there some criteria to say if they just sit in the class and don't do work at all, are they getting that? So are we distinguishing between kids who are actually doing work, whether they take a test or not? Is there like a grading system? that
That's a
they
great
follow?
question. Those courses are graded the same way any other course would be. It's about the work you do in the class, not the exam result. And you can't, because the results don't even come back till July. So it's about what work did the student hand in and do over the course of the year, rather than,
Right. If the
how
student
they
did not
pass or not.
hand in what their work, they're not getting that GPA, higher GPA.
yeah. And we have data that shows, like, we have a lot of kids that I presented this way back in like February. The final grade, who got a 1, 2, 3, and 4, who the students that scored a 1, a 2, a 3, 4, and 5, their final grades, like what were their averages, and they all got A's. Because our A starts at an 89.5. So an A, like a 1 was an 89.5. And like our 5s, our kids that are 5 students are like a 93. But we report alpha numerically. So we report with the letter, not the number. So they all received A's on average.
Anything else? Would the board like to move on to new business, or? Yes? All right, great. Let's do that. We're going to move on to new business, which is 3 items, policies, a review of the agenda action items for the July 26th public meeting, which is next week, and central office department updates with the department heads that are here. So Dr. Gascon, would you like to kick off policies, or will it be one of the administrative representatives?
Yes, so administrative representatives, so that we have 2 policies on the agenda for first reading. I will ask Mrs. Lamoglia to kick it off.
Okay, I'm going to start with the first policy, which is the wellness policy. Essentially, what it's asking us to do, you'll notice that all of the changes are highlighted in bold, and it's asking the district to identify a district wellness policy coordinator that'll work in together with the principal of each school to ensure that we're using safe snacks, and to ensure that obviously not just the nutrition in schools, but also anything that's being brought into school for parties or celebrations, or also we're being mindful of allergies and making sure that the students have the right nutrition information is provided for each one of the snacks. This coordinator will also review what's taking place across the district 4 times throughout the school year, and then obviously provide an update to the Board of Education at the end of the year.
Do any board members have a question? I think Dr. Claire, you mentioned something earlier today, but you want to go
I
over that
did, yeah,
now?
I didn't
Oh,
know
sure.
when that was the right time.
Sure.
So the person who's a wellness policy coordinator, who will that be? That would be,
The district would have to designate this person.
okay,
Yes.
so they would have some background in nutrition.
Mhm.
All right. So a couple of things, you mentioned some promotional days when you introduce new nutritional alternatives. I don't know how often you plan to have the promotional days, but why not have it more often, like just once a week, a fixed day, Friday or Thursday, so people know when to expect it rather than promote the promotional day.
It's absolutely a possibility. That's not a
Right.
problem. Yes.
And another thing is, in order for them to encourage, more encourage healthy eating, as I think you said, you'll be presenting them at a better spot or something. But why not, can we write the nutritional value of each food item? Because these, especially high school children are into sports and they really want to be fit. So if you put that calorie value and sugar and, and so on, that'll be useful for them to make a pick and they know what they're eating.
And certainly that could be updated as part of the regulation as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a
thanks.
great idea. Chartwells can handle that, correct?
Absolutely.
Any other questions on this particular policy? We'll move on to the next one. Thank you.
Absolutely. The next one is the attendance policy, and you'll see that there are 3 paragraphs bolded and highlighted. They are additional to the policy that's already existing, and ultimately they're just defining parent and guardian. First, in the first paragraph, explaining excused versus unexcused absences, that the district will have to identify what is excused and what is not excused. And then obviously anything towards that that's unexcused would fall towards truancy. And then, of course, the last paragraph just highlights the fact that the school must have advance notice of an absence, and then a principal or designee of that principal would call and follow up with the parent if we don't hear from them.
Any member of the board have a question on that particular policy? Thank you. Does that include policy discussion?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next item. Superintendent? Would you like to run through?
Well, I thought that we've sort of approached this 2 different ways since we've been doing this in committee of the whole. First one, we went through each motion. The last one, we sort of just gave the board an opportunity to again review the agenda and then bring forward any questions. I would just propose that back to Mr. Wall, how you would want the board may wish to proceed. Last meeting worked pretty expeditiously. We had some good questions on key items the board had questions about. So might that work?
Sure. We'll move through it. For the public's benefit, this is going over the draft agenda, which is for next week. So what we can do is perhaps go through it in blocks, and I'll start, and folks feel free to jump in anywhere you would like. The items 1 through 6 are approvals of minutes. So those items, if you haven't or have not had a chance to look at those, you can take a look through those, but those are the items for the agenda for next week. The next items are the policies that you just heard is 7 and also 8. Oh, wait, sorry, that's not 8. The item is 7. Are we also having both of those policies are on there? The local wellness policy and attendance, that's item 7. Do you want to move through the superintendent's recommendations?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
This would be starting with item 8.
8 is,
I'm sorry. There may be items that are personnel oriented that would not be, this is a draft, and so they would not be public items as yet. And so we'll move beyond those items just for the edification of the public. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, 8 is pretty straightforward. Professional development. Certainly if the board had any questions about those workshops, happy to answer those. At 9 are summer hours for employees who are participating in AP Summer Institutes, teachers who teach those classes in mandatory AP institutes. I know that there were some questions on 10 on the health textbook. I don't know if we want to put a pin in that and come back to it?
Yes, let's go through the
you wanna do
agenda. And
that?
items
Okay.
that we're going to pull or the board members want to discuss separately. Feel free to verbalize that and we'll come back to them.
Okay.
So item 10, yes, got it.
Non-monetary donation of a piano and a bench, very nice. 12 is a standard MOU with as having a relatively small ESL population and budget. We participate in a county consortium. If anyone had any specific questions about that, I would say that Mr. Petrizzo or Steve Wysocki would probably be best able to answer that. That is an annual motion. We have home instruction. I don't know, Ms. Lamoglia, if you wanted to add any color on those.
Just in continuation from the school year.
Okay. Our student placements, yeah.
Our out-of-district students for the 23-24 school year.
And we have a contract with Edison Board of Education.
They send the student to us, so for extended school year. And the last one is the Commission for the Blind. It's our contracts with them for students with TBI.
Very good. Any questions on those items? Okay. We will have a board vote for affirming HIB cases, which were brought forth in the last closed session. We
Items
did-
18, 19,
Yeah.
20, 21, 22 are various personnel items, 23 as well. And 24 as well.
If we have questions on the personnel items, when are we?
We'll go back into executive this evening then. We can do that if you like. So if there, any particular items or personnel in general? Okay, so we may have to go into executive session. If there are a couple personnel items that a board member wishes to discuss, we'll go back to executive session. And the, just moving through to business administrator recommendations. This is starting on item 31. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. So 31, 32 is just the standard operating procedure. It's approval of the May financials for, and then also for the secretary's report and the treasurer report. 33 is extraordinary aid award. And 33 and 34 is extraordinary aid and non-public school reimbursement. How this works is the state identifies what we'll receive after the year is concluded. That's why we're getting it now. And this is based on, extraordinary aid is based on services that we provide to our special service students that are eligible to receive specific funding. That changes each year based on how much the state will actually fund. But that's consistent against standard op aid that we receive. Non-public school transportation costs is same scenario. We get reimbursed a portion of the costs that we incur for these transportation costs. Resolutions 35 and 36 are our annual allotments for our ESSER funding is 35. And then 36 is our annual allotment for the IDEA aid. Both of those are federal aids. And then there's several, starting with 37, 38 and 39 and 40 are all dealing specifically for non-public school aid. The public school district doesn't receive this funding at all. We just act as the intermediary. We receive it and distribute it to the applicable non-public schools. Number 41 is just the resolution to authorize submission to the county, the state via the county office for the adjustments or the renovations we're making to the village school library to add additional courses. I'm sorry, to add 2 additional classrooms in that area. And then 42, we're accepting with gratitude a donation from the HYAA for a non-monetary donation for volleyball system at the SATS gym. And then 43 is moving forward with ESS Northeast, which is a professional service provider to assist us with maximizing substitutes in the school this year. And then number 44 is our bills list that we approve each month.
Thank you very much. For the board, are there any questions on the business administrator recommendations? So just note, this is a draft agenda. So for example, the final items, old business, new business, question or comments from the public, executive session and adjournment, they haven't happened yet. So there wouldn't be any agenda items there because it hasn't happened yet. The meeting is next week. This is a draft agenda, which is subject to change. So that said, are there any questions on the, before we get back to item 10 and then discern board member Riamonte's question to the extent we go to executive session? Are there any questions on the business administrator's recommendations as far as the draft agenda? Now, this is not being acted on tonight. This is for the meeting next week. Okay, hearing none, let's, if we may, can we go back to, and that concludes the agenda review. The old business, new business, questions or comments from the public, executive session and adjournment are standard language, generally speaking, in a draft agenda. The final agenda does come out earlier now. It's usually out by Monday for a Wednesday meeting. So you'll see it on the website, hometooschools.org. Once that link is live, you'll be able to see what should be the final agenda. Technically, you can change an agenda a little bit, but usually it's not done. But that should be Monday. You'll see a link that'll be live on the site, and you'll see the actual the work product here translated into a final agenda. So that said, can we go back to item 10 for Dr. Cascone, if you would speak to that and then open up to any board questions that you may have.
Sure. The motion is for the approval of new textbooks, one of which is for health education, secondary health education. And we had received some questions, Mr. Damari, and if you wanted to raise those questions here for Dr. Irwin's consideration for the benefit of the public.
Thank you. I know we can continue this discussion, Dr. Irwin, but just to get some color on the textbook and what we're using it for.
Sorry. So currently, we don't have a textbook in health for 6-8. We just don't have one. And we don't have, I don't want to, it's not 9-12, it's really 9-11 because 10 takes driver's ed and 12 takes CPR, which is a different class. But we have a need to update the textbooks. They're outdated. So we researched a few different vendors. We landed with McGraw-Hill. They offer digital access, the standard class sets, like a consumable that you would purchase, textbooks. We're proposing a digital option for the following year. One, because it would allow us to reuse licenses so that you can use them with the same kids as they cycle through the courses rather than having to buy one-to-one textbooks. Glencoe Health is from McGraw-Hill. It's the most used health textbook in New Jersey. It wouldn't be just for sexual education. It's really all topics in health, alcohol and tobacco, drugs, wellness, nutrition. And then included with that is like the sexual education pieces. And there's a small companion book that I believe is titled Human Sexuality that I gave you guys access to with the board thing, with the demo accounts. So the textbook wouldn't change our process so much as far as health participation. Parents would still have the option to whether they want their child to participate or not. But we also know that this year we use an outside consultant because we didn't feel, our teachers expressed that they didn't feel comfortable or ready yet to teach the material themselves. And if we want to empower our teachers to teach these lessons, we want to give them the best materials to do so by a well-reputed, research-informed company. So that's pretty much where we're landed here. So that would take away any need for us to really do the backleg work of finding people to write lessons and stuff for us, because our textbook would equip us with the options.
Would the diversity and relationships part be a part of opt-in? Are we utilizing this instead of what we utilized high tops for?
Yes, we would use that in replacement of using where we would have.
And are
high
the
tops.
teachers or the teacher that will be teaching this, are they going to pick and choose what they want to utilize through that
So
diversity and relationships?
So what I want, The textbook is just a resource. The curriculum, which is how our standards are ordered and what topics are covered, that's what the teachers have to teach. The textbook's the resource that enables them to do so. So they don't really get to cream and crop and say, I'm going to do this, but not this, because they follow the curriculum. With that said, the opt-in pieces would stay the same process if that would remain like an opt-in topic, and we would use the textbook resources where we can for that.
All right, because this part has a lot of gender identity and a lot of sexual orientation, and we're talking 6th, 7th, and 8th, where a lot of the children are still, they're naturally developing mentally on where they are sexually. And looking at some of these, there's actually new terms in here that High Tops wasn't even using, like gender creative and gender questioning, which concerns me as a parent. I wouldn't want my child being exposed to those terms when he's still trying to find himself. So are these gender identity and sexual orientation conversations going to hit 6th, 7th, and 8th grade?
It would be for the students whose parents elect them
Who
to
opt
do
in.
so, and we would only use the top. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to use every page in the textbook. You would use the parts of the textbook series that align with what our curricular goals are.
And just as a quick compliment to that, because I think it's important, we recognize that as we transition over to our staff doing these programs, you know, Dr. Irwin and I have had conversations this summer about how we are preparing them to do that, right? In providing the proper direction and guidance and parameters for that. And we're not simply just going to hand them a textbook and say, go get them. You know, we understand there needs to be some additional supports in place. So we have been having those conversations.
Will we see what the curriculum will be for the opt-in,
Absolutely.
right, before we,
Sure.
okay.
Could do that.
All right, so then we'll take it a step
Yeah.
further then just to see the specifics. And how are we assured that children who are not opted in will not come across this textbook either digitally? I know you said we weren't getting physical copies.
So what's nice about using digital copies is you assign the units to the kids. So if you have kids that don't participate in that unit, you don't need to assign them that. You basically assign it through your Google Classroom. So if they're not participating, you just don't assign those materials through that student.
But then the opt-in kids are going to digitally have access to it.
As far as they're logged in with the platform.
That's a little concerning, I feel like. Just children taking screenshots of certain things. I mean, they're promoting an all-inclusive mindset, gender-free public bathrooms, promoting pronouns. This is not something everybody agrees with. So we'll take it a step further when it comes time. But what concerns me is then the book is in our curriculum and it's out there. I have trouble approving this book because it's not
Yeah.
material I agree with.
Understood.
And I do think there's some bias to it. I don't know how the other board members feel if they did have a chance to review the book, because this is a hot topic in our community right now with a lot of this. Does anybody have any comments on the board about what they read in the Glen Clove Health book that we're going to vote on next week?
I didn't have a chance to review it, but I will. And I'm still a big proponent of gender affirmation versus kind of the gender, the other part of the ideology. And gender affirmation, meaning it's okay to be a little boy, it's okay to be a little girl, and this is what's great about you as a person, affirming what they are instead of kind of putting the alternatives in there. But I will certainly review it. And I do like the digital part of it. That seems to be a little more, protective, if you will. We can never certainly protect them from to print out anything on the internet and show anybody or take screenshots. It's not like, we can shield them from everything anyway. So.
Just to follow him, Mr. Mann, I still need to read it more thoroughly, but I would also agree that every little boy and every little girl should know that they are perfect just the way they are. That said, I have to do some reading on that myself.
I just want to comment, because I hear this a lot from some community members about, oh, they have phones and internet and they can grab something from anywhere. There's a huge difference in a child's mind when they see something on the forbidden internet that they know their parents don't want them looking at versus, and I know you
Well, and
agree,
also
but
when it's conveyed by an authority.
when you see it in the sanctuary of the school that your parents send you, the kids look at it a lot differently.
Thank you. Thank you for all the input. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was just wondering, when you said, for the parents who want to opt in, then I thought you were saying that you were not comfortable with parents who did want to opt in. I'm not sure how yeah.
For the parents who want to opt in, that's fine.
Right.
But as we saw with the High Tops presentations, it filtered down and trickled down to the opt-out kid. The kids who didn't opt in had also gotten the lesson just the way it was set up, because kids were plucked from the class and they came back and it was the first thing they talked about. I know
Okay.
through experience.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you very much. The other item is Board Member Briamonte had some personnel oriented questions. Mr. Green, if you can speak to that, I think you conferenced with her as a sidebar.
Yes, I've confirmed that the question pertains to a former employee, and we can go into executive session to discuss that. What's commonly known as a rice notice requirement does not apply to former employees. So that would be a legitimate topic for a closed session.
And just to be clear, board member, are you looking for an executive session this evening that you want the board to agree to do, or are you comfortable having this listed for executive session next week?
It's fine either way.
Okay. If there are any board members that want to meet after this meeting for another meeting, speak up. Otherwise, we'll have this on the agenda. Board member ready, board president ready. I'll be back and address it. I think it will next week and make sure it's listed. Thank you very much regarding the agenda. Thanks for the input. The next item would be the very important central office department updates. So we can get insight from our key departments. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Cascone. How would you like to run that through?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wall. I think we'll just go in the order as they appear. So Slamogli, you want to get us started?
Absolutely. Okay. On July 5th, we began our ESY program. We have 50 students attending. It was a smooth transition back into school. Everyone's right where they need to be. Our 18 to 21 program has continued their CBI and WBL experiences. And we're looking forward to next month having a culminating activity where we invite all of the parents in to see what they've been working on over the last 6 weeks. So we're really excited about that. From a building based, our department has been working on staffing the vacancies that we have, working on with the building principals on schedules, on updating components of the parent-student handbook as well. This summer, we're developing pacing charts for our MD program, K-6, in the areas of science and social studies, and the creation of professional development academies for our paraprofessionals. We did a survey at the end of the school year to find out what our paraprofessionals really needed to learn more about, we're interested in, and we're developing an academy for the entire school year next year. And then as far as onboarding, we've been doing a lot of onboarding. We have a new assistant principal here at the high school. So working on home instruction, 504s, INRS, MTSS, as well as onboarding our clinicians who are transitioning now from Rutgers to home health staff members, procedures, policies, practices that we're going to be putting in place. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the board, any questions on her report?
Yeah, so not so much a question as now that this is a committee of a whole, and there are a lot of acronyms in here.
Sorry.
So for the public who's listening or who may listen later, they might want a little bit of an explanation as
Absolutely.
to those acronyms.
ESY stands for Extended School Year.
Yep.
The
ARC.
It's just the ARC. They work with
Oh.
developmentally disabled students.
Okay.
The
CBI, WBL.
community-based instruction, work-based learning.
Got it.
MD stands for multiply disabled.
Got it.
AP, assistant principal.
Right.
Not to be confused with the testing. 504s. INRS is our intervention and referral services, and MTSS is a multi-tiered system of support. There are a lot of acronyms in special education, so I apologize,
No.
but I will certainly make note of that for next
Yes,
time.
just for the public, so they understand.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Noted.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay,
Sure.
ready. Thank you.
Okay. First, I wanted to follow back with your request, Ms. Briamonte, about summer programs. So on July 10th, we started our summer step-up program. It's invitation only to the students that need support because they may need some time to catch up and extra practice with skills. So the program's going to run until August 17th. We have 130 students enrolled. And then starting on July 1st, which is just a 1-week program, it runs from July 31st to August 7th with the performance on August 10th. Last year, it was very good. I'm sure they'll outdo themselves again this year, but that's our summer performing arts camp, which is also through our Art ESSER funds. And we have 66 students enrolled in that. So those are the programs going on this summer. With curriculum writing, we are revising. So you have to revise your curriculum every 5 years as part of the cycle. It's just part of code. So we went through each of our department areas and took a look at what curriculum needs to be revised per the dates. We're revising 38 curriculum this year, and that's written by our teachers. And then it goes to the supervisors who put their eyes on it, give feedback, and then ultimately I give my feedback as well. And then it appears on the agenda in August or September with the full curriculum list as part of the superintendent's recommendations. So we met with them to kind of just make sure that everyone knows exactly what they're doing, that they're using standard language, that they know what to include, how to go about that and whatnot. Our exam results. So I don't want to give too much away because I'm going to do a report in August or September, but we have our AP results in, and we also have our preliminary NJSLA. And the reason I don't have everything with NJSLA is I don't have it broken down by like subgroup, like for instance, like special education students, how they perform versus gen ed. We just have grade by grade level proficiencies and overall proficiencies. So hold on tight for the full report, but overall, 80% of our students that took the AP exam scored a 3 or higher. Last year it was 78%, so we saw a 2% increase. And then, like I said before, even though we only have NJSLA, we only have the overall picture. Last year in ELA, which is English Language Arts, we were at 75%. And I remember saying, it'll be okay. We're going to improve. They need time to get back in their reading and writing skills and practice. Our district proficiency is 80% this year, so a 5% increase. And more importantly, we're where we were pre-COVID. In math, we're at 68%. We didn't go up or down. We stayed the same as last year. Our increases in math, the grades where we saw like things go up, is really accredited to the programming that we're doing. So Into Math was the program we launched at Indian Hill. And coincidentally, grades 4 and 5, we did the research, our scores went up in the grades that have the program. We also saw an increase in high school algebra and geometry. I'll present more in depth at a later date. Just some things that I feel like the curriculum office is busiest in the summer because we have to get all our ducks in a row for the upcoming school year. So just some of the things that we're working on right now, among many, but new teacher orientation, opening day in service, the professional development we give to staff at the start of the school year, our assessment calendars, outlining teacher expectations for many things, such as like grading, such as parent outreach, all of those like norms that we want our faculty to adhere to. We're also working on professional development for our own administrative staff and our teaching staff. And we are continuing to work on our strategic planning, which you'll get a fuller update on next week. I wanted to close this, well, I'm not closing the circle yet, but I wanted to just give an update with National Honor Society. So this will get a formalized memo when our advisor is currently overseas and doing professional development right now. So we want to wait for her to come back and the faculty council so that we have a chance to discuss with them what the recommendations were from the board before we can put forward. But I can say with certainty, as far as the recommendation letters, it was like up to 7 in following years. We're capping it at 4 for next year and all following years. 7 letters is a lot. We recognize that. There's 4 pillars, 4 letters. It makes sense. The past practice was 1 letter had to be internal and the rest had to be external. And we got feedback in that area too. So we revised that expectation as well. So we'll do 2 internal, 2 of them need to come from external and 2 of them could be from staff or internal. We'll give the full recommendation then at our August meeting. And then finally, I just wanted to talk briefly about some scheduling changes at the buildings. So one of the things that we're going to be doing in K3 next year, in addition to going to trimesters, this is really all SEL driven, what's good for kids. Classes start at 8:55, but kids are still getting off the bus at 8:55, and not everybody starts in their homeroom. Like some kids might have art first period or whatnot. So we're doing an 18-minute homeroom at Village to allow them the transition time to get acclimated, to do morning meeting, to do some of that mindfulness and SEL work prior to starting their day. And where do we make up that time? We had 5 minutes in transitions, like period to period. We're shortening our transition time to give time for that homeroom. And then finally at the high school, another likewise, so because we have a drop schedule or a rotating schedule, Not every kid sees their teacher all the time. And that's really important at the start of a marking period. You want to introduce all your teachers, and at the end, because if you have assessments or you have exams, you want to make sure you saw that teacher, and it's not like on a month, you have the class on Thursday and then don't have it again until Tuesday. So we're just instituting like an other letter day, which just means twice a marking period, the first and last day of each marking period. We'll shorten the period so that the kids can see all their teachers, so that they can have everything they need to get started and the time to wrap everything up. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open up to the board for questions you may have on curriculum and any other topics.
Yeah,
Sure.
with the exam results, the proficiency in math was projected to be 68%, consistent with 2022. But how does it compare to pre-COVID? Have we gotten over the learning loss? Do we know what it was pre-COVID?
I can present all that more in August. I don't have the numbers right on top of me,
Okay.
but when we do the presentation, I'll return to that question. Thanks.
More than likely, just, and you've been saying August or September, more than likely
September.
it'll be in
So I'm
September.
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
So I just have a question about the summer program. So I know we have 130 students on the roster, which is great. Do you remember off the top of your head, like how many, I forget, it's a higher number than that. Like how many invitations did we send out?
I think it was about 30% higher than that, so about 160.
Okay, so my question is, I mean, I know that this is something that was kicked around even prior to you, but those other kids that did not enroll, were calls made to those families just to explain why they were invited and how this program could help them?
Yes,
Okay, just checking. Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Any other board members?
Yes, if I
Ms.
hear clearly, so our AP exams, the 80% of the test of the people take the test pass the 3, right? So I think that's great achievement. Like we have 100 participate rate for the AP, and then we have 80% pass the 3, which is accepted score and for the college. And I think that's a great achievement for our school district. Thank you.
I concur.
Anything else? Thank you. The information is very, very encouraging, and hats off to the staff, the families, and particularly the students who are working so hard every day to move ahead. So thank you very much for that update. Dr. Cascone, next department, if you would kindly come forward and share what you have for us.
Mr. Howard?
Hi, good evening, everybody. They always have me bad in cleanup. All right, so for human resources, I only have four things on here. The first is we're continuing our pre-configuration meetings with Frontline. Actually, we have a meeting with them tomorrow to make sure we clean up all the stuff we need to for implementation when we come in September. That's with switching over from the Genesis evaluation platform over into Frontline. ESS services, which I think was number 43 on the motions. And we met with them this past Thursday to kind of finalize the agreement with them. Their bill rate for us is 29%, which in just whole numbers, if we pay a sub $100, they bill us 29% of that. So we're paying $129 for that sub. People may be wondering, why are we doing that? Well, our fill rates have been as low as 32%. Like we hover around 42.3% in terms of our fill rate. And real numbers, that means that we're paying teachers for coverages. I don't have the numbers from June. I know up until about April, we spent $111,000 in coverage money. So ESS is saying that they can help get our fill rates up to like 70 to 80%. We may not see that initially in that first year, but I don't think we can get worse than 32%, 36% that we've been hovering around. So we're looking to see some cost savings there from having to provide coverages for these spots. Also, it'll help us with sub turnover. Our turnover rate is like 72%, meaning that we don't really get a lot of the same people back. all the time. They have a bigger pool to pull from. So hopefully we can get some consistency there. After, if the board approves it and we move it forward, we're going to send a letter out to all of the substitutes, letting them know of the switch. They won't be Homedale employees anymore. They're actually the employees of ESS services. They're going to come in and do a 2-day orientation with the substitutes, and then they're also going to come in and meet with all the administrative staff and the secretaries who are responsible for sub coverage. So I'm hoping that this will be a smooth transition process, and it'll help in terms of our fill rates and save us some money in the amount of money that we're spending out in coverages for classes. Right. The next thing we have, we want to continue our partnership with Vector Solutions. They do our online training for staff. We're actually meeting them on the 1st of August. From the assessment that we did with HIB, we see that there was lots of holes in what we were providing staff and other people who volunteer and work with Homedale in terms of training. So we want to revamp that whole thing to fill up those gaps, and especially make sure that everybody's trained the same way with HIB, how to deal with crisis. So Vector Solutions is going to help us go through all of those trainings on Tuesday. So they'll be ready in time for September. And the last thing, Human Resources still been working diligently with all of the new staff, making sure that all their paperwork is correct in terms of, signing contracts, medical forms, health records, benefits, and those types of things. Nicole and Elena have been working, they work around the clock with doing that with all the new staff. And that's pretty much it for HR.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howard. For the board, any questions that you have, Mr. Howard? Okay, so thank you very much. There are 2 more reports, buildings and grounds and budget, and then buildings and grounds. And then we'll have questions and comments from the public if you have any. And so with that, Mr. Patrizio, if you can.
Thank you.
Touch on the budget.
Sure. Start with 2022-2023 extraordinary aid and non-public school transportation, and I referenced it earlier, but recap, it's we were recently notified by the of our applicable funding for the year that just expired. We get notified after the fact, so that this way we are able to utilize that. We actually account for that during the budget process, consistent with prior years, but it comes after the year is over, and that's the reason why you're seeing 2022 and 2023 aid. Those applicable resolutions will be on the next week's agenda for approval. The next topic is 2023-2024 federal grant awards. The applications for the 2023-2024 Elementary and Secondary Education Act, or ESSA, which represents Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV federal funding, along with the Individuals with Disabilities Act, or IDEA, basic and preschool federal grant awards have been completed and submitted to the state of approval. The applicable resolutions, as referenced earlier, will be on the July 26th agenda for approval. 2023-24 non-public school aid. As mentioned earlier, this aid represents non-public school funding that the state provides for the schools that are located within the township. District acts as a flow-through entity, whereas the state distributes the aid to the district, and then the district distributes the funding to the applicable non-public schools located in Homedale. This aid is exclusive of security, nursing, technology, and textbooks. And those resolutions will also be on the July 26th, 23 agenda for approval. The 23-24 food service renewal. Just handed out that the information just was handing out. It's also included in your on the drive for the board. We have been working with the district and Advocate have been working with Chartwell's to finalize the food service renewal. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to lead up to this. We work with Chartwell's, who kind of had their own organizational restructuring going on, which kind of led to some of the ultimate delay to getting to this point. We have Sean Walsh here this evening with Advocate, who will review with us the information that was just handed out. And kind of goes through a little bit of kind of where we are from our current year, which was 22-23 year was the first year of the new contract. To remind some existing board members and new board members that are on, last summer, we went through the RFP process for food service. Chartwell's was awarded that contract, and then how it works is for the next 4 years, you have the ability to renew that contract. So with that said, Mr. Walsh, we appreciate you joining us tonight. If you can just review this information.
Certainly, certainly. Good evening. Thanks for giving me a few minutes so I can just present an overview of what we've gone through for this food service renewal process. Like Michael said, it is a collaborative effort. It took some time this year for many reasons. It was the first renewal coming off the base year contract. Chartwell's did have some restructuring going on, and with the changing times and the increasing costs, we had to get pricing involved in the conversation for the renewal. So you can see one of the things on the handout that was given to you. What we're looking for the base student price increase is a 25-cent increase, meaning going from $2.90 to $3.15 at the elementaries, and then at the high school and middle school at the complex, they'll go from $3.75 to $4. One of the reasons, or several of the reasons, why we really had to take a look at the price increases is, number one, to really come up with a fair renewal for everyone. Chartwell's and the needed some pricing increases to continue to be able to offer the services, the food quality, the healthy options that the district is always looking for. The district has not taken any price increases in the food service department since 2015. As we all know, there have been significant increases in food and labor costs during that time for everybody, and doesn't escape school districts. The other thing that we really talked about with Chartwell as they presented a couple of months ago is to continue to offer premium and healthy options, right? We're always looking for the best in the school districts. Homedale is always looking, from your education and all your service you're offering, food service is important to everyone in the community. So to continue that better quality, higher nutritional value meals and offerings, as well as maintaining that retail style program that we're looking for. And when I say retail, it's not only the food we offer, it's how the food's presented, packaging costs, right? How it's marketed, signage and merchandising. There's costs all involved to that to offer the program that I think everyone here in this room wants to offer. So one of the things you'll see on the handout that you were given, there's a table that outlines the price increases, not only to the base meal, but to some of the a la carte additional offerings that Chartwell's offers in your school cafeterias. And we broke it down for the high school, the middle school, and the elementary. One of the things we also did when we were coming up with some new structured pricing was we did Advocate did a comparison of 4 other school districts that are off the National School Lunch Program, like Homedale is. And those 4 districts were Bernards, Montville, Ridgewood, and Westfield. So based on the pricing here that's outlined in your handout, And the communication we've had with the district and with Chartwell's, Advocate would recommend to renew Chartwell's for the 23-24 school year. Questions?
Couple quick questions. The guarantee amount, what is that? 57,496 to 20,000. What's that? FSMC, who's that?
Yeah, so the FSMC is Chartwell's, right? So the guarantee is the surplus that's guaranteed to the district. Those funds belong to the district. And the fee itself, that's a cents per meal fee. That's the fee that the district pays Chartwell's for their services.
So we're losing 37,000 in guarantee and increasing the fee to them by 5%?
That is correct. So again, even with this additional pricing, one of the things that we have to realize, not taking a price increase since 2015 has really has really hurt the finances of the operation, along with the significant and severe increase in the cost. So with the price increases, the budget proposed is for a $20,000 surplus, and the fee is a 5% increase, where the index rate is 5.5. So we actually got it a little lower than what the index rate
Which index?
is. So it's the consumer affair index rate is what the competitive contracting increases are based off of.
CAI?
It's
CPI?
it's not CPI. It's just called the index rate, and it's
Implicit price
It's-
deflator.
yep.
Implicit price. Okay. Did you shop any other agency other than Chartwell's?
For
You're our consultant, right?
correct.
And they pay you as part of the contract, right?
We are paid by the district,
Okay, that's not
But-
built into.
but out of the it's out of the
Yeah.
it's out of the school cafeteria funds.
Okay, so you're recommending we go with them. Have you shopped any other vendor?
So we did not shop this year because shopping is not part of the renewal. Shopping is part of the RFP process that we went through last year.
So this is intra-contractual.
Yeah. So if I
Essentially.
may, so
Yeah.
last year when I referenced, when we did the RFP, Mr. Wall, that's when it was open to anybody who wanted to put a proposal in. So after that, and it was awarded Chartwell's, which was the only proposal we received last year was from Chartwell's. And then you have the ability for 4 more years to renew. Both parties mutually must be agreed upon. So that's what we're at, the first year of the renewal.
Any reason why we didn't get any other proposals?
So honestly, these management companies are looking at the finances of the district, and the current pricing that you had before the increases that we're proposing really hurt the people wanting to come and take a chance, because it's a very at your existing selling prices of $2.90 or $3.75 for and especially for an off the program retail style program, those are considerably low prices. Just as a quick comparison, if you were on the program over the last 2 years, the state has raised the maximum meal price significantly. It's gone from $4 to $5.25 for a base meal. So just as comparison, and those are for programs that are using commodity food and they're on the National School Lunch Program. Typically off the program, the pricing is usually higher than an on the program school.
Since you're a direct connect to Chartwell's, I'd like to
No,
first of all open it up.
So I'm clear. So you're clear. We're not connected to Chartwell's. We're the consultants for the district. Here in this district, we work with Chartwell's to try to get the program to where we all want. it to
Yeah, I
be.
mean something slightly different. You
Yeah.
are our interface with. the
Correct,
vendor.
correct.
So I wanted to go to Dr. Coulor because you had some points earlier, and I think this is the right gentleman for any of the board members to make sure that you're aware of. Occasionally, I'll, for example, hear the food is great. I'll hear it's awful. It's dry, terrible, pizza's green, right?
Yep.
And then other times say it's good. Like we don't, as we're volunteers, so we're not in the schools day to day. I want to go on with Dr. Coulor. The only question I have is, to what extent are you regularly or with some frequency going to the schools, going down the line, looking at the quality, auditing the quality perhaps. Maybe speak to
Yep.
that, and then I'd like to.
Yeah, so we, as part of our contract monitoring, we do a minimum of 2 on-site visits during the course of the year at each school to monitor just that, see the quality of the food, see how the food's presented, see if their systems are in place, if they're following health and safety protocols, if they're following all the HACCP protocols, as well as then again, the food quality and the menu, things of that nature. We do that twice a year.
Have we gotten any notices of violation from any health departments, regional or otherwise?
Absolutely not.
All right, thank you. Dr. Cooler?
Thank you.
Yeah, you are.
When I attended the school board meeting in Atlantic City, I had food at various vendors who were offering food, and they had a variety of food items, including sushi, salsa, mini tacos. I mean, just a variety of them. And I don't think I saw chartwells there, maybe, because I sort of went around. And so they apparently offer those items to schools, and that's why they had them there. And clearly, I don't see such a variety here. And I in fact, took some cards, but I misplaced them because I asked them, why they didn't give a bid, to our schools. And they said, it's because the schools usually go with the same vendor, or maybe the price, but if it's a little bit more with the price, but if you can have such a nice, not a variety, that would be preferable. So I'm not sure why we're not getting those vendors to even come to us with an RFP. Is this something that do they get the message that we want this price, or we're happy with Chartwells, or is it that since we are with Chartwells for 10 years, they just assume we're going to be with them? I can at the next meeting get their cards and call them myself, but because they said that if you did make a call, they would apply or whatever.
So I'm going to answer that 2 different ways for you, right? So number one, you mentioned some items like sushi and some other high scale items. So one of the things as part of this renewal, and Chartwell sort of in their presentation a couple months ago was talking about some different programs they can offer. We address that in the premium and ultra premium price that's on the price list on your sheet. So those are the type of items that would fit under those categories, that ultra premium, where the pricing was increased, but really is in line with the average of the four districts that we surveyed. So that can address the pricing part of them being able to offer such premium type of items. So, and then the second part is during the RFP process, we saw the RFP process this current year, which for the 23-24, another year removed from COVID, another year where the inflation rates and the pressure on the labor force has sort of eased this year. We saw much better participation of management companies willing to go out and bid and propose on districts that weren't their own. Last year, when you went through the process, it was all the RFPs that we did were a much tighter. There wasn't as much competition out there because the management companies themselves were being a little bit more conservative, and they're also more interested in protecting what they already had versus going after new. But we did see that climate change this current year, just so you're aware.
Thank you. And then this ultra premium options, we were hoping to have a little kind of a focus group or something to find out what they are, because it's just a large group, so we can get involved in maybe having more choices there.
Yep. So one of the things, and I think Chartwell's addressed it at their presentation, was once upon a time, and not too far long ago, there was meetings with not only the administration, but parents were welcome. There were meetings with groups several times a year. Coming out of COVID, that sort of died down. We also had a year, might have been last year, where there wasn't a lot of parents from the PTA groups requesting the meetings. So those meetings became with just the principal and the students. but we can advise Chartwells and work with the district and work with Chartwells to get those meetings back where you have more of a focus group, where you have some parents involved in those meetings, where we're open to it, the district's open to it, and Chartwells is open to that as well.
So if we did an RFP next year, for example, do you think we'll get more vendors interested?
Again, it's the market is contingent on a lot of different factors, right? So one of the reasons that we saw better competition this year was the leveling out of the playing field of labor and food costs. Next year, part of the problem becomes maybe a little bit less not of competitiveness is next year in the state of New Jersey, there's over 225 school districts required to go out. It's a big cycle year. But again, we can see how this year plays out with Chartwells. And again, that decision that can be another discussion. We can always make that decision. Again, because like Michael pointed out, these are annual renewals. You're not locked into Chartwells or any company for 5 years. It's a base year contract with this annual renewal process.
Thank you. And lastly, I know that I've talked to Mike about this, that Chartwells gives us some money back. I don't know if that is the guaranteed surplus we're talking about.
That is the
Right.
guaranteed surplus.
I'm personally averse to that because I know it helps us buy some coffee machines and things like that, which we can do. Otherwise, I feel that we should put that money back and reduce the price or raise the price for better quality food. On one hand, we're saying that, we want to keep prices here and have quality of food suffer, but then we're taking that money back. So I feel if we put the money back to the price, that may be better.
And you're not wrong, right? How you want to run your program and the amount of surplus you want is definitely a board and a district decision. I do caution every district, not just here, $20,000 is not a lot of money to have because you have to reinvest in your equipment, in equipment repairs, things that go on. $20,000 in 4 schools for even just a repair of equipment could go quickly, right? So you have to look at that because once you go through that surplus that's provided by the operation, then you're going into general funds to pay for those type of things.
So this is allocated only to repair the equipment needed for the cafeterias.
It is the surplus in the cafeteria account is used for improvement of the cafeteria and the service.
Yeah, if I may.
Yep, please.
Dr. Clory, yes, what this allows for is this program, all these costs are as part of the enterprise fund, as we call it. So it's not part of the operating budget at all. There's no operating costs at all. So what Sean is referencing is you have to be careful because we are constantly reinvesting in the program, but we're doing it through that program itself. We're not having to budget money out of the operating program to send over to invest in new equipment or enhancements to the kitchen or serving areas or any of that type of stuff.
So it's used for the kitchen.
It's
so that's-
it's self-sufficient, self-funded. And so.
Anything else? Thank you. Any other board members have a question or comment? Any closing thoughts for the board?
No, again, I just appreciate the work that I know I work with Michael and then the meetings with the board. And it really is a credit to the people in this room that you care about the food service as well as everything else. So so thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time today. And just as a housekeeping note, the items from the departments are in the department update. The board's aware of this, but the public may not be. These are public records. So if you want to get into the fine grained detail of what you're hearing here today, we may put it on I think we typically do put it on the website. Okay, great. So you can go to the website and the items that we're going about, if you want to read it on your own, at your own leisure, you can go ahead and do that. And that'll give you a closer idea of what's happening on a day-to-day basis. Mr. Trizzo.
If I may, Mr. Wall, so just to finish on the renewal, that applicable resolution will be included in the agenda that goes home as well. We just wanted to go through the information first before we put it on, okay? One last topic on the update is the 2023 MCIA Capital Equipment Lease Program. That was the other attachment that you have. That was also the board drive as well. But every 2 years, the district participates in a pooled capital equipment lease program through the Monmouth County Improvement Authority, or MCIA, which allows the district to take advantage of MCIA's AAA bond rating status and interest rates. The district utilizes this program to purchase equipment for technology and operational needs. That applicable list was provided to you. We actually got the data from the law firm that handles that today. With the knowing that we had this meeting, we were requesting to get this information for them. They said they provided to us if there's the ability for the board to approve the applicable resolution at next week's meeting. They would prefer that happening from a time sequencing thing for this pooled loan. So as you can see, we utilize that. And if you look at the list, you can see it's predominantly technology. And that's become our main funding mechanism for technology needs. And then there's usually, as you can see, there's one dump truck for operations that we're factoring in there as well. But that this mechanism has been our main mechanism. And it is actually a great service that Monmouth County provides. We're one of a handful of districts that participate. I don't know why a bunch of other school districts do not participate. But like I said, we've consistently utilized this this funding mechanism, and I think it's extremely efficient because we take advantage of that AAA status and maximize those interest rates.
Thank you very much. And we've participated for years. Monmouth County AAA rating Commissioner Director Arnone and the team there has partnered with Homedale for many, many years, and we appreciate their support. The last department that we have tonight is Buildings and Grounds. Mr. Stromslin will give us an update. And as you're coming forward, just a quick item I wanted to ask, brief one, is do we have any upcoming schedule for auctioning or disposing of surplus equipment, like behind SATs where the tarp really is covering the back? There's a lot of old equipment, a lot of exercise equipment, things like that. Maybe it's already gone, but I just want to add that as a.
Yeah, if I may, yeah, we typically put that on our June one as part of that big, but there was a lot of activity going on this summer. So the thought was let's wait to the end and then have one large list, because there's other items going on this summer that will be disposed of.
Right, thanks. So we'll go with Buildings and Grounds, open it up to the board, and then we'll open up to the public for questions and comments. And then if there's no other business after that point, we'll look for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Stromson, thank you.
Okay, good evening. Summer cleaning is progressing as anticipated while we work around the programs for the students, Step Up and other athletic and the ESY programs. The three of the major projects that we have, the Village 2-3 Library, the Indian Hill Music Room, and the modified security entrance for the high school are all underway. Our maintenance work orders, classroom furniture moves, and other summer projects are all continuing. Our annual fire inspections of all schools were just completed, and we passed in all categories. In addition, we just completed the boiler inspections and playground inspections throughout the district, and all were reported in good shape. And finally, the Bound Crawford House is scheduled to be properly prepped and repainted externally this summer. Shutters will be replaced and all necessary areas will be caulked and sealed to provide a weather-resistant finish. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Any comments? Thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight. At this point, we'd like to open the floor up to the public who's been kind enough to be here. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to come up. If you don't mind just sharing your name, address, and mic is yours. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Deepti Varma, 10 Georgian Drive. I
Welcome.
have two kids, a rising sophomore and a rising sixth grader. Just wanted clarification on a couple of things. I know you've been bombarded with questions today, but I'll try to keep it short. The weighting change for AP and honors, is that a proposal or is the decision already been made?
Thank you for that. I'll answer that. I think based upon, I think some of the feedback we received tonight is relevant to that. So at this juncture, it was a proposal. So I think we're going to back debrief what we heard tonight and can report back out in August as to what the final recommendation will be.
Okay.
Yes.
Just one last question, and Dr. Irvin, you might have touched on this before. I know it doesn't matter what the schools come up with as far as weighting. We could come up with an 8.0 and colleges wouldn't care. But I'm just curious what the decision behind the proposal to change it was for 4.5 for honors versus.
So it would really be to distinguish between the rigor of an honors course and the rigor of an AP course and putting the emphasis on taking AP rather than taking a test. And this wasn't my recommendation. I have the high school principal here. This is something collectively that we've worked on with the grading committees.
Sure. The previous one proposal or the grading system, weighting system that's in place is AP was a 5.5 for
Yep.
taking the test, and it's going to become a 5 now.
Yeah, but like I said before, it wouldn't change anything about our
Yeah.
kids' experience. Like
Mhm.
if whoever is at the top of the class is still at the
Sure.
top of the class.
Sure. That's why I
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
curious why it was changed.
It's really about just, incentivizing AP rather than, because honors and AP technically
Sure.
have the same merit right now. And we want to acknowledge that you're taking a college level class and apply
Right.
the appropriate credit to the rigor of a college level class.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much for coming up tonight. Yes, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi there.
Rashmi Mathur, I'm back. Sorry. I
Welcome.
won't take up too much time because I think Dr. Varma spoke a lot about what I was wanting to ask about clarification. I do feel like this is kind of not incentivizing honors by making this change. So as you're saying that you wanted to have a distinction between AP and honors, I feel like if you change it to 4.0, 4.5, and 5.0 versus the 4.0, 5.0, 5.5, it's essentially lowering the numeric GPA for the students, and it may not incentivize them to want to be in honors. So they may think, okay, well, I can get a 4.0 in a regular class. Why am I pushing myself in honors to get a 4.5, which is just a half a point difference? I like the way it is right now, so I'm going to voice my opinion about it. I feel like there is a distinction between honors and AP because there is that 0.5 distinction where if they took the test, which chances are they will take it because you guys are nice enough to even offer that to everyone to take. I think there's going to be that distinction anyway. And so I really would like to know more about the reasoning why this is being changed, if that's being proposed. And then I also think that this affects the National Honor Society criteria because
That's
that
true.
was increased. And this is really going to, for our school district in terms of numbers, and I know you can make the numbers whatever you want to make them, as you stated, but I think that overall, the GPA is going to go down because, for example, my son, who's going to be taking an honors algebra 2 class next year, he's going to hopefully get an A and he'll get a 4.5. He won't get the 5.5 that he got this year in honors math.
He wouldn't have gotten a 5.5 in
I'm
honors
sorry,
math.
a 5.0. Yeah,
He
because
wouldn't
that-
have gotten that. That's not, oh,
he would. He did. I mean,
yeah.
he would get a 5.0 for that. And the other thing is there's not an AP class for every class. So it's not like there's that opportunity to be in an AP class for honors algebra 2. Later on, there will be in senior year when he takes AP Calc, he'll be in an AP class. But there's not an AP class for every class that you take.
I think good feedback. Appreciate it. I would. I don't think we. I don't think we need any incentivizing in our district for taking honors. In fact, we have we have large numbers of students who are presently waiving into honors programs, notwithstanding the fact that they haven't met the criteria as outlined by the district. So I don't think that that's something that we necessarily need to be concerned about, but I think the feedback you provided, fantastic. And thank you for toughing it out for almost 2.5 hours. We appreciate you, and we appreciate the feedback. It's all good stuff. And I think that's why, and it was really that community feedback that really gave us pause to sort of, okay, let's consider this and listen to parent and student voice. So appreciate that. And we'll bring it all back, put it in the mainframe, if you will, and spit out something different. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Welcome.
Anthony Lebecci, 6 Great Myrtle Drive. I just wanted to first thank the board for all your transparency and also the administration for all the details that you are giving to everybody. But one real quick thing, I think maybe you should also consider the portion for the public to speak to maybe go first, because these poor ladies were sitting here for 2.5 hours. And I'm sure they have kids that they need to get home to. So maybe we can consider that one day.
Well said.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you very much. To the board, any other comments the agenda you heard today? Anything you want to share tonight before we wrap it up?
I think that's a good suggestion. Maybe let the audience ask after the old business, between the old business and the new business, because some people probably just come here for the old business. If they say this agenda, so they do not have to wait, for we finish all the business, then new business already, sometimes already 11 p.m. I think it's a good suggestion.
Thanks, board members. I think it's a great suggestion. Take it back. And as folks who are watching the board meetings know, the committee of the whole process is constantly evolving and improving. It's 9:20, not 11:35 right now, which is not too bad. For anyone in the public who wants to reach out to the schools, homedaleschools.org. The information is there. The agenda will be linked live approximately on Monday. And certainly if you reach out to administration and staff for any items that you require assistance with. And as always, the board members, you can reach them at boardmembers@homedaleschools.org, and then we will all receive that email at the same time, including staff and administration too. So with that, if there are no other items for the business of the board, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
We have a second? Roll call? Oh, you don't like a roll call? All right, let's have a show of hands for the video. There we go. All in favor, say aye. All administrative staff that wants to stay, say aye. All right, thank you very much. We are adjourned. Have a great week. Thank you.